Welcome back to the channel, y'all. Today we're going to be going over our Shadow Magic Sorcerer build. If this is your first time with the channel, we like to make fun, viable builds, not necessarily optimized or like a meta, but it should be good enough to get you through Tactician and Honor mode. If you like fantasy games and a little bit more of a chill vibe, then consider hitting that like and subscribe button, and let's get started. Now, when it comes to character creator for your sorcerer here, obviously race, all those choices, completely up to you. Don't ever let anybody tell you how to RP. But at level 1 here for our cantrips, I want to pick up some ranged elemental cantrips, something like Firebolt and Ray of Frost. And you might want to consider picking up Acid Spray as well. Now, when it comes to your first spells, the only mandatory pick here is Chromatic Orb. That's going to have a lot of synergy later on. Now, our subclass of choice here is Shadow Magic. Well, the first feature here is Eyes of the Dark. You can see in the dark up to 24 meters. Obviously, that's a little redundant if you're a drow, but thankfully we do get a second feature here, Strength of the Grave. After you hit 0 hit points, you will regain 1 hit point instead of becoming downed. This is actually a nice bit of survivability, especially if a boss or in general a tough enemy manages to take you down with their last swing. Well, with Strength of the Grave here, you get 1 more lease on life. Now, when it comes to your ability points, you need to focus on Charisma, Constitution, and Dexterity. Anything you have left over, you can put into whatever you want. Now, before we move on to level 2, let's name our character here. I'm thinking Mizora. Yeah, I think that'll do. Now at level 2, we get our meta magic, and we also get the actions to create a sorcery point if we trade in a spell slot, and then we get create spell slot if we trade in sorcery points. We also get another spell slot. I'm going to go with something like Mage Armor, and then for our meta magic choices, I would definitely go with Twinned, and then either Extended or Careful. Distant spell we will actually get much later on through just being a Shadow Magic Sorcerer, but if you absolutely feel like you need to take this, it's not a big deal right now. Let's move on to level 3. Now at level 3 here, some interesting things happen. First and foremost, as a Shadow Magic Sorcerer, we pick up Eyes of the Dark. Now what this does is gives us access to the spell Darkness, but also gives us a unique darkness in the Eyes of Darkness. That's a lot of dark. Just very dark, darkety dark. Anywho, the difference with this one is it costs sorcery points, and on top of that, while we are inside the darkness, we will gain the ability to see in both magical and non-magical darkness up to 25 meters. This essentially will give us the playstyle that warlocks have, where they can cast darkness and then take devil's sight, and they can sit inside this shadow bubble and be mostly protected while slinging whatever spells they want, so long as they're not a concentration, because both of these darkness spells are concentrations. And so moving over to our spell selection here, we gain access to our level 2 spells, and I think a great spell to take with this is either Scorching Rays or Shattered. We are going to be picking up both of these spells, so whichever you choose is entirely up to you. Now we do gain access to, I guess, our next tier of meta magic. I always just go with Quickened, and with that out of the way, we can move on to level 4. Now at level 4, we do get to pick up another cantrip. There is something like Shocking Grasp and Booming Blade, but I don't want to be in melee range, so maybe take something like Mage Hand or Friendship. But if you want to be in melee range and take either one of these elemental cantrips, that's totally fine. Moving over to our spell selection here, I'm just going to take Shatter, and now we can talk about feats. Obviously, we always have something like ability improvement and bumping up our charisma, but with Shadow Magic here, I also like taking Alert. That way we are basically always first in the turn order and we can't be surprised. Another option I really like is taking Warcaster. This will basically give us advantage on our concentration saving throws and also give us Shocking Grasp as a melee opportunity strike. And then maybe another good pickup would be something like Elemental Adept, and then just picking one of these elements that you think you're going to be using a lot of. In Baldur's Gate 3, there are a lot of enemies that are resistant to fire, but honestly, lightning and thunder, those can work too. But for right now, because we're going to be focusing on concentrations, I want Warcaster. Now, even though we take Warcaster here, as a sorcerer, our concentrations are pretty good at staying up because we are proficient in Constitution. So just naturally as a sorcerer, we're going to get a little bit of a bump there. So our concentrations are going to be very hard to break. So those would be the feats I'd be looking at. Let's go ahead and move on to level 5. Now at level 5 here, I would take something like Fireball or Lightning Bolt, and then we can quickly move on to level 6. Now level 6 here, this is a big level for Shadow Magic Sorcerer. This is basically where I think the subclass comes into its own, and that is because of the Hound of Ill Omen. That's right, it's a pet class. Yeah, grab your dog. Mwah, hi baby. Hi.
It's a pet class.
Go get the black spray paint. We gotta make you look like Nimbus, okay? Goodbye. Go. Well, she went to go get something. I'm just not sure what. Now moving over to our shadow dog, his name is Nimbus, and he's a good boy. Nimbus here comes with a couple nice features. The first one is Umbral Tangle. This will do necrotic damage, and if the enemy fails their saving throw, they will have these shadow curse vines on them. They won't be able to move, and they'll take a little bit of necrotic damage each turn. In addition to that, attack rolls against them have advantage, and any enemies with this condition will have disadvantage on their attack rolls and dexterity saving throws. So this is a nice ability to use if you have like 2 or more enemies near your pet. Nimbus also gets Ominous Bite, which has a possibility of putting Omen on a target, and that condition is basically it'll be a random element, and if your sorcerer or anybody else matches that elemental damage, the sorcerer will then receive a sorcery point, so a little bit of a resource gain. This is why we took Chromatic Orb, just to guarantee that we can find an elemental spell to match Omen. And then the last major feature here with Nimbus, I would say, is Splinter Shadow. So if somebody attacks our doggo here in melee range that is not radiant damage, Nimbus will make a little copy of himself that is AI controlled, and they will basically just run around casting Umbral Tangle. This very much has a snowball effect in some encounters, and hopefully we can show that off in the gameplay section. Now moving to our next spell choice here, I want to support our doggo the best way I can, so I'm picking up Haste, and we can move on to level 7 where we can pause and talk about multiclassing, because right now I think Shadow Magic is like complete as far as the subclass. Now when it comes to multiclassing with Shadow Magic, I think you can't go wrong with something that shares its spell modifier, so something like Warlock, always a good choice, and then obviously Bard as well. If you just want to take a small dip into another class, Fighter is pretty good for that because you get Action Surge at level 2, but also because we have such a focus on having all these different elemental types, taking Barbarian and then going Path of Giants to then gain access to Elemental Cleaver is not a bad split option. I'm gonna have to make a build around that one day, but that's not this video. And people always give me a kick in the nuts to mention Wizard here and that you can spend some gold on a scroll and learn it. So that is always a choice. Please leave my nuts alone. I would really appreciate that. So those are some general good multi-class options. Let's return back to Shadow Sorcerer and we're going to go into level 7. Now at level 7, we get our level 4 spell slots. I would maybe take something like Ice Storm for a nice AoE option, and we can move on to level 8. At level 8, nothing special, kind of fill out what element you want. Right here, I haven't picked Lightning Bolt yet, so I'm going to take it now. And we also get our second feat. I'm going to take Alert, and we can move on to level 9. Now at level 9 here, we do unlock our level 5 spell slots. If you do not have a control character for some really nasty fights, taking Hold Monster here, not a bad idea, but we can hold off on that until level 10. Just know this is an option I'm going to be taking a little bit later on. For right now though, I really like Cone of Cold, so that's what I'm going to go with, and we can move on to level 10. Level 10 here, we get another cantrip. I'm just going to take Friendship. Booming Blade and Shocking Grasp are good, but again, I don't want to be in melee range as a Shadow Magic Sorcerer. Spell-wise, this is where I'm going to take Hold Monster, because with our Meta Magic pick here, I'm going to take Heightened. This is going to make us a great control character if we don't have another character to fill this role. So while I'm not going to be using the Heightened Meta Magic Control Monster combination in most encounters, I do think this is almost like a must pick as a sorcerer just in case. And with that, we can move on to level 11. Now, level 11 here, we get our last feature as Shadow Magic, and that is Shadow Walk. This essentially is like Misty Step as a free bonus action as long as it's in an area that is shadowed. In addition to that, we get Distance Spell. So this is why we didn't take that meta magic so early on. So a fun playstyle we're going to show off with this is to open up with Shadow Walk and go really far away, and that way this Distance Spell will proc, letting us sling whatever spell we want from a very safe and far distance. And then lastly, with level 11 here, we do get access to our level 6 spell slots. I'm going to take something really good like Chain Lightning, but you know, Glove of Invulnerability, really good too. At this point, our kit is complete, so it's kind of pick up whatever you need. And let's move on to level 12, where we're going to pick up our last feat. And I'm just going to go with Ability Improvement and bump up our Charisma to 18. We do get another spell. I think I'll just take Globe of Invulnerability and call it a day. And now we can talk a little bit about equipment and go into the gameplay section. Now, really quick, when it comes to equipment, I want anything that's going to help out my spell attack rolls and also my spell DC rolls, because when enemies have to roll a saving throw against some spells like Fireball, I want basically that to be as high as possible. So something like the Fistbreaker, this is really good. We have a lot of cantrips, so Potent Robe, also a good choice here. Necklace-wise, the Necklace of Elemental Augmentation, again, we have all those cantrips. And then I also took the Ring of Mental Inhibition because, again, all these saving throws, if they fail, they're going to get Mental Fatigue. That's really nice synergy. And then I'm just using something like Melf's First Staff here, again, for that +1 bonus to spell save DC, and then the spell attack roll. And then because Gale is a human here, I can use Ketheric Shield, so always nice to be a human sometimes. And then something I forgot to mention in the feats is dual wielding, so you can use 2 staffs, especially if you're not a human, so you don't get shield efficiency. Taking that feat to then dual wield staffs, not a bad idea. I do have the Bow of Awareness as a range option here. I'm not really using this as a bow, like for the actual bow. I'm using it for that +1 to my initiative rolls. I am stacked on initiative right now, so I should definitely be going first in the turn order. Now, before we get into any sort of combat, we need to walk Nimbus because he's a good boy. He likes his little walk on the sand here, and you should always try to exercise. Oh, great googly moogly team. Look what's happening, Kupos. Some Sahagin, they're coming to attack Baldur's Gate, which means we have to stop them. Now, starting off with Gale here, we do have one Sahagin Hunter that is basically stopping our turn link from us both going at the same time. So this guy is a priority here. So we're going to quickly wipe him off the map. Now you can see something like Ray of Frost. Oh, we're just out of range. We could walk up there, but why walk when we can just shadow walk instead? And then we get that distance procced. Yes, yes. Now we can hit them with ease. So we'll quickly do that. Should do double damage because they are wet. So that's double damage there. And because we're hasted, we can go ahead and go again. Now we actually are going to walk up a little bit. Alright, so he's done. Now we have Nimbus's turn, and we want Nimbus to basically be in melee range because if he gets hit with a melee attack, there's a chance he will split off into a lesser version of himself, or a lesser version will split off, and then they'll run around like crazy using Umbral Tangle. And I also cast Twin Haste on Nimbus as well, so he can use Ominous Bite on one target. We'll go up and hit him. We missed. Not great, but we'll do it again. So now he has Omen of Acid. We'll get into that a little bit later. Now we can proc this Opportunity Strike, and we might split from it. There we go. Now that's what I'm talking about. Now this is going to start to get a little, it's going to snowball in our favor. And so hopefully we'll see that happen. All right, end everybody's turn and see what they do. We have decent like AC, but not great. We probably should have cast Mage Armor, and I didn't think about that, but that's okay. So now the little dog's getting in there. They take a hit, but then they split off as well. So it's not just Nimbus. If they hit the mini versions as well, they will also split. Yeah, these guys do a lot of work as far as being these little AI dogs. We're gonna attack Nimbus again. We get the choice to split again. Might as well. Yeah. Now you can see that this is just completely snowballed into our favor. So this potentially is a very strong solo build if, you play your cards right. So before we get into Gale's turn here, I just want you guys to hopefully see that there are a lot of moving parts with Shadow Magic. It's a very densely packed subclass because you can see here a little bit of a minion mancer, but like a pet class as well. And then hopefully I can illustrate. Let's go to Nimbus here and let's try to get another Ominous Bite on somebody. I have advantage. Okay, so we have 2 of them with Acid Omen. Let's go ahead and switch back to Gale. And Gale is in a little bit of trouble, but we can use Shadow Walk and get away. And now Distance has procced. So a nice thing here that I want to point out is, so both of these Sahagin here, they have the Acid of Omen on them. If it was like Omen of Fire instead, we could use Twinned and then use Firebolt, which only costs 1 sorcery point. So as long as we hit one of them, basically it'll be like a free twin cast. If we hit both of them, we'll basically get a positive sorcery point. So it plays into a little bit like how Death Domain Cleric does, where they can use their necrotic, or not necrotic, necromancy cantrips and attack 2 enemies at once. Well, we kind of get that playstyle here as long as we have the right omens matched as far as elements. So I mentioned a little bit earlier, kind of a pet necromancy class. Now we get a little bit of Death Domain Cleric. We already talked about the darkness combination that gives us Devil Sight, kind of like Warlock. So hopefully I'm doing a decent job just kind of showing off that Shadow Magic is a very, again, densely packed subclass that I think people overlook it. I don't want to say it's underrated, but I just don't think they see like all the potential of what this subclass can do. But they are acid, so we're going to use, so unfortunately we can't use Twinned Acid Spray. Acid Spray you can only target 1 enemy with, but we can split Chromatic Orb here with Acid. So let's go ahead and do that. and we have a really good chance at hitting both of them. So after we cast this, we should have 7 sorcery points. There we go. Now, we could do the same thing again, but they don't have that omen on them anymore. We could go back to our doggo, so a little bit of going back and forth here, and try to get another ominous bite off. Well, that didn't happen, but that's okay. And we can end our dog's turn because he can't really do anything else. We could try to split him again, but I think we have enough puppies at the moment. So end his turn, and then we have Gale here. We have one more action. We have to be careful of not hitting any citizens, so using something like Ice Storm here would be a bad idea. I think because we have the resources, we'll just go ahead and use Twinned again, and then use Ray of Frost. Target you, and is anybody like low enough to just straight up take out? Yeah, this guy right here. Bam. They're both gone. 80 damage. Damn. I did switch out Gale's staff for the Morning Frost instead, so a little bit of a Frost Mage going on here. Really strong. But yeah, that's it for his turn. Let's just get him a little bit higher up, and then we can end it, and then see what they're going to do. This guy's really out for my blood here. We got our AI dogs. Yeah, they're just going to chomp on down. Guy's such a good boy. Another one splits. Another one splits. Damn it, they're just doing all the work down there. I would make a who let the dogs out joke, but I don't think anybody makes those jokes anymore. Anywho, we're just gonna blast this guy with Ray of Frost. That way we can get into position. See ya. A little bit closer, and then we'll move to our hound. And I can't actually use our hound because we have an AI controlled one right here, and he's breaking up our block that we set up. Thank you for that, puppy. But that's okay. I think with Shadow Magic here, you can use your sorcery points a lot more freely than I think with the other sorcerer subclasses, because there's just going to be this ebb and flow of getting them back a lot more often. Now, yes, you can still use like the shield cheese to get basically an infinite amount of sorcery points. But if you don't want to mess around with this, then again, I think Shadow Magic Sorcerer is just really good, again, as far as like resource economy. But let's go ahead and just use Twinned again, and we'll just hit them both with Ray of Frost. Obviously, if they were weak to another element, we would prioritize that. But again, because they're wet, we might as well just double up on the damage. And with our bonus action here, we can actually use Quickened and hit them again. Yeah, might as well finish this one off over here. Move a little bit closer. These guys are all locked down over here. And let's see if our puppy can take them out, both out. Nice bite. The other one. So we got an Omen of Fire and an Omen of Acid. So we could use Firebolt in our next turn. Let's see if they make it that long. Now you notice some of the dogs get dismissed. I think they reduce the time that the dogs are actually active. But it seemed like what, two turns? Before it was much longer in the playtest. So that's an adjustment they made. But now I get to show off what I was talking about there, where we have this one with Omen of Fire and we have this one with Omen of Acid. So what we can do is Twinned, and we can just use Firebolt. As long as we hit the one with Firebolt, this is basically going to be like we didn't spend a Twinned, and it'll be like a free cast. And boom, they're done. We didn't spend a sorcery point. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, madam.
Down truly. Gods know what would have happened if you weren't here.
True. Very true. Good thing I was walking my dog. I'll take your 301 gold. Thank you very much. But yes, that is the build. That is the video. If you guys made it this far, thank you very much. I know this week was a little bit different. We had that Final Fantasy Tactics like remaster reveal, which I'm very excited for, and especially to cover any new information on it. But it doesn't mean Baldur's Gate 3 is going anywhere. So I will see you guys next time. Peace and take care.